Yes, I will talk about reparations. Absolutely. Pay what you owe, America. Pay what you owe. That's how I feel about it. Pay what you owe, America. America should pay what they owe. Now, with that being said, if you don't like what I have to say, that's totally fine. Doesn't make me a difference. But the one thing that I do know is that America needs to pay what America owes. America owes a debt to foundational Black Americans. America owes a debt to people of color, but especially foundational Black Americans. We deserve our reparations. Foundational Black Americans in particular. We're the only group in this country that hasn't received reparations, and that is a shame and a disgrace. That's a stain in this country. And until you do right by us, America, you will never prosper. You will never reach your fullest potential, because parts of your citizens are upset with you, rightfully disgruntled. Now, with that being said, if you don't really care for that, that's totally fine. However, I want you to understand something, right? When it comes to foundational Black Americans, we have this thing about us, whereas we realize people aren't going to accept our claim of reparations. We realize that people are going to go against the grain there. We realize people are going to make every excuse in the world possible. But I want you to understand something, right? That all the silly words, all the racism, all the pseudo racism, it doesn't work. It just deflects right off of our backs, because we've heard all the same stuff over the years. We've heard all the same stuff. So the one thing that I need for someone to do who doesn't like reparations, right? I need someone to explain to me the reason why we should not get it based on what happened to other racial groups in this country. I need you to explain to me in detail, in painstaking detail. I got all day. But if you do personal insults, you do silly sloganeering, I don't want to hear from you. That doesn't really help me. It doesn't help anybody. All that does is cause division where there doesn't need to be any. There needs to be unity when it comes to the concept of reparations. Needs to be unity, right? Gumbo Gum says nothing but disdain for the pigs and in the judicial system. Absolutely. But the one thing that I need for you to understand is that there are people out there who have this belief that reparations has to be something that is non-cash. And let me tell you something, right? That is not where we want to go. Espo Libertarian, how you doing? Good evening, good sir. How you doing? So to basically break down the reason why, there's been such a rejection when it comes to things that are non-cash is because you made promises to other people. You made promises to Native Americans. You made promises to Japanese people. You made promises to Italian people. You made promises to people overseas. You made promises to people domestically. You made promises to women, to men, to young people. And America has not lived up to that particular promise. Now, all the other things that people are saying, well, you guys could get, housing. You can get, reservations. You can get all this stuff. We can buy all that with the money that we're going to get. And it's coming. The reason why I know it's going to be coming because everyone's trying to talk to us, trying to talk us into something that's lower. And you're also seeing people trying to latch on to reparations, right? So that's how you know that it's going to happen. Because people realize that by 2040, it's going to be a real thing. It's going to be too many Black people in this country for it not to be a thing. Granted, the majority of people in the country are going to be Hispanics, easily put. But what you're going to see very, very quickly is that by 2040, it's going to be a serious discussion of it. And right now, people are trying to stake their claims down. That's why you're seeing so many people who are from the African diaspora who don't even like African Americans, doesn't even like foundational Black Americans, who are trying to latch on to reparations now. I find that to be very, very interesting, a sudden development. You didn't even claim us before, but now all of a sudden you want to be just like us when you come here. That's very interesting, So it's not just white supremacy that's trying to stop us from getting reparations. It's also people from the diaspora, The problem with that is that, unfortunately, because we're 13% of the population, and because we reserve reparations, which is going to happen is that people are going to try to latch onto that, and that's going to cause a problem with reparations. It's going to be simply too many people. See, with foundational Black Americans under this system, less than half of the Black community would get reparations in the first place. So when you start adding Jamaicans, Haitians, everybody else, people from Honduras, people from Equatorial Guinea, other parts of the diaspora, the problem with that is that it's going to become too expensive. You'll be right then. It'll be way too expensive. Right. But those people were never included in the original discussion about reparations in the first place. It's about 40 acres and a mule. That doesn't include Jamaicans. Doesn't include anybody from Haiti. Doesn't include anybody from Equatorial Guinea. Doesn't include anybody from the African continent other than foundational Black Americans. Now, the reason why people try to bring up all these other people is because it is a way of trying to stretch things out. Like people say, well, what about the Jamaicans? And the people who typically say that aren't even Jamaican. Marley Marl 687 says, never heard the term foundational Black Americans until recently. IMGR 44311 says, nope, no. How about plane flights? No, thank you. What happened to ADOS? ADOS, the reason why I didn't like ADOS is because ADOS is American descendant of slavery. That can be a white person. But foundational Black Americans, that says foundational Black Americans. It's pretty clear. It's pretty cut and dry. And the reason why people resist that term so much, especially people who don't like reparations, is because they understand there's no way to weasel around that. Right? There's no way to weasel around that. There's no way to lie or trick your way out of that, right? You can't talk your way out saying, your own people, so how about they pay you? Yes, I would ask for payment for that, but it happened here too. So nice try, but that's called a deflection. That's a whataboutism. That's not an actual point. Does it disprove that slavery happened here? No. And there are people who in Japan who sold each other into slavery, and we know that, but they still got reparations here. So your point is 100% invalid. Staying focused on in flight. We are not a mature enough culture to actually benefit from reparations. That's fine, but I'll take the check though. I want to be the deciding factor of that. Because everybody says things like, and it's no offense against them, no offense, but I do hear a lot where people say things like, well, what's going to happen is people are just going to spend it. Well, let us do that, right? You wouldn't go to a court case and tell a victim of any crime that restitution needs to be paid, but they're concerned about what you're going to spend the money on. That doesn't work. Marley Marl says, what about Black American troops who left during Civil War, went to islands, or they do reparations? Maybe if they can trace their lineage. Michael Mass says majority of people of color from Africa went to South America. We're not talking about people of color. We're talking about foundational Black America specifically. You keep trying to deflect. It's not working. It's kind of embarrassing, actually. Staying focused in flight says Hurricane Katrina. Absolutely. Even if you try to skip slavery, you can't skip civil rights era. There's some people who are still alive. Right? What about Haitians who came with Louisiana Purchase? Are they due? Maybe. If they are foundational Black Americans for no time for reparations, that's your opinion. I think it's always time for it. It's time for it when it comes to the Italians, to the Japanese, to people in Ukraine. But when it's us, it's always too expensive, or we don't have enough time. No, thank you. Don't want to hear those sweet excuses. Sorry. They know if they pay us, most of us leaving with the bag. Probably. But I know that once they realize that they paid us, that we will be on equal financial footing. That's where a lot of this is coming from, because a lot of white folks realize that you've done us wrong and you've held us back for so long that if we actually ever got equal, you'd be left behind. You realize that though. So the other thing, so I'm responding to some more comments here. Will be considered foundational. Foundational Black Americans is someone that is a direct descendant of slaves. It is not it's not so much about skin color, even though a prerequisite is to be actually Black, but it's also about lineage. See, when you make it about lineage, people can't get around that. That is clearly provable. You can trace that. I've traced it. Most Black folks can trace their lineage if you follow the 1870s and 1870s and 1890 census, and also the early 1900s. You can actually trace your lineage. Let's see. Let's go down here. Dixon Harry Boots says, "I'll pay you to leave our country." No, thank you. This is my country. My country. We built this, sir. No, thank you. Staying focused in fight says the government gave millions and very few actually benefited from the Katrina money. That's fine, but they wouldn't have said no, right? True Blood, Tony Tone says, yes, equality don't work for them. Yeah, it doesn't. Saint Stereo says, hey, how you doing, Saint Stereo? Marley Mall says, I don't think you have these terms clear. Tariq Nasheed, Jack, the ADOS movement. No, I have it clear. It's pretty clear. In fact, you could even Google Foundational Black Americans. That's actually the definition for it. No, it's pretty clear. I pretty much explained it. I use actual times and dates and stuff, so it's not very hard to understand. True Bloody Blown says white supremacy needs to be gone. Absolutely. Dixon Mary B says 350. What lineage are you referring to? The lineage of directly to slavery. Directly. If someone happens to be a Haitian or happens to be a Jamaican who happened to come in through that on time, and they have to be enslaved or around during that time, sure, that would count. But that's not most people, because the immigration was not that heavy in the U.S. And the proof of that was that MLK and several other people doing the civil rights there had to actually fight to open up immigration for African immigrants, and we have actual dates for that. So no, that's not something that's going to be so common that we start including everybody there. Direct descendants of slaves. Now, if you want to start reparations for anybody else, that's totally fine. We can have that conversation. But for right now, direct descendants of slaves. You want to know why we make it that simple? Because when you start adding in everybody else, adding in all these other people and stuff, do you see what happens? No, we're not going down that road again. We've learned from this stuff. We know what this stuff is. I say that overall, it should be for foundational Black Americans. Dixon Harry Butte says gas is $4 a gallon. No time for reparations. Gas was very, very expensive when we were giving money to Iraq, Afghanistan, to Germany, to the Ukraine. Gas is $4 a gallon. Like right now, we gave all this money to Ukraine. I don't live in Ukraine. Do you? So no, thank you, sir. I'd much rather we spend that money on our own citizens. So nice deflection, but once again, you're never going to get around that. Trust me, the more that you try to skate around this, right, the more ridiculous that your point is going to appear. Okay, so you can keep trying, right? You can keep trying, but it's not going to work. Marley Marl says we have $9 billion for Ukraine. Quit making excuses. Absolutely, we got every time, right? When it comes to us, oh, it's just too expensive. So it wasn't too expensive to have a prison industrial complex that costs trillions. It was too expensive to run a drug war that cost you $1 trillion. It was too expensive to go and drone strike Black and brown countries. So my thing is that if it's not too expensive for you to go and do that, why is it something too expensive to give money to your citizens that you know that you have actually wronged? Now, if you try to skate around that, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you at that point. You have to at least acknowledge that. There's no just saying no, like Dixon Harry Butte says, hey, we agree on something. I'm a national student. No. Agree on that specifically. I want to hear you say it is wrong for us to give money to Ukraine when we have not given money in reparations. If you can say that at the very least, I can at least talk to you. But beyond that, if you cannot concede simple points, I can't talk to you. I don't like the scurrying. I want you to stand by your points. Actually make a point. Actually make an argument. Stand by what you say. And when I say stand by what you say, don't use weasel words. Don't use slogans. Stand by what you say. Stand by it. Right? All this stuff of hiding in comment sections. I'm going to just say to the comment section that, oh boy, I'm going to change minds. You're not going to change minds. And just trolling, this whole trolling thing, that is so 2000 and late. That is so 2000 and late. How much trolling do you think actually makes into politics? Besides Trump. And even Trump is gone now. So Marty Mall says American government actually promised 40 acres and a mule. Didn't buy the contract? Absolutely did not. Secretary responded to Dixon Harry Butte says I'm not going to say that. Kwame K. Wayne 49 says change their last name. Absolutely. St. Sarah says it's wrong for us to give money to anyone without giving reparations to Black Americans. Absolutely. Dixon says, "You mad? It gets me off." Oh, that's weird. That's whenever you say that to a man, I don't think you want to say that. That's kind of weird, bro. All right. I have a girlfriend. Me and her have been going steady for a long time, and I care for her very much. She's very beautiful, and I encourage you to get one. But um, I'm not interested, man. That's a little bit creepy. I'm very uncomfortable with you saying that. Please, can you stop? And this is not trolling, right? Because see, trolling, right, is the thing, right? Trolling when you troll, right, you might want to say something different other than what you're saying because it's a little suspect, man. All right, so I'm being serious. Like you should really work on your trolling, right? You should really work on your trolling because it's not very effective. And aside from that, it's pretty sad actually. Um, because the more you talk, the more I'm like, are you into me or something, man? Like I really hope that's not the case because brother, I am not the guy. I mean, if you're into me, that's totally fine. But I'm not the guy. All right, so see, at Wayne, proud of the way I love Amy, and also Saint Sarah, you both moderators. So no, I have my thing about me. Whereas some people have this thing where they love to argue with me because they understand that if you can defeat my points, you have a solid argument. Because I try to make it so that you can't just blindly snake your way through stuff, right? So Dixon says if he was handling it, he would have blocked me a long ago. Um, no, I was just kind of concerned at first. That's just weird, bro. But anyways, so back to reparations. So the reason why I think that Foundational Black America should get it in particular. So a lot of people have said, okay, so what about people who are part of the diaspora and they feel like they should get reparations? I think there's a conversation to be had there, but the original concept was for foundational Black Americans. See, there was no talk of reparations towards African immigrants. We were talking about 40 acres and a mule. So we should handle it by what came first. What came first? Well, what came first was 40 acres and a mule that was allocated to refugees who were slaves. That's what we should aim for first. The reason why I say this is because if you haven't fixed that damage, that means that damage could potentially be there. There are communities in West Virginia that have not, white communities that have not recovered from the Civil War. So if you understand that, then what do you think happened to the slaves who were refugees who never got the 40 acres and a freaking mule? Right? So if you don't fulfill promises, what's going to happen is you're going to have a whole section of your society that's going to feel disconnected from your country. And the reason why they're going to feel disconnected is because they don't feel like you pay your debts. Now, America is a country that's in debt, so I don't see why. I guess that's not shocking. But when you owe a debt to people, and it's a debt that's been owed for hundreds of years, what that creates is a not only a racial divide but also a class divide, because that damage is going to be reflected in how you look at those people, how you police them, how courts treat them, how your attitude towards them is going to be shifted and geared towards someone who you think deserves to be wronged but not paid. See, that's the issue here. The main issue that I'm having with the whole reparations issue is that you knew it was going to create a class and racial divide from the very start. When you do harm to people, you don't financially compensate them, and yet they have financially suffered. Well, they're going to financially suffer for generations, much like the same white people in West Virginia who haven't recovered from the big Civil War. So with that being happened, you're going to have a case whereas those people are not only angry with you, but they're poor and angry. And when people are poor and angry, they're going to act out. And when they act out, you're going to have law enforcement respond to them. And when law enforcement responds to them, you're going to create the civil rights era. You look at California, like, for example, in Watts, in California, you had some demonstrations there that happened in 1965, the Watts riots. And you had demonstrations happening across the country because you had black people who were living in poverty who were upset about that. And so as a result of that, police departments across the country began cracking down on demonstrations, even if they were like peaceful. So what happened during those demonstrations was that a bunch of black people were abused so badly, and you had police gangs across the country who were abusing people so badly to the point where a year later you had the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense that was founded in Oakland, California. Do you see how all this stuff is connected? And that's why if you read a part of the 10 point platform of the Black Panther Party, one of the 10 points is reparations. Why would they come up with that? Because they saw how many black people were in poverty across the country at the time, which is what partially motivated the Watts riots, right? And what happened as a result of that was that the Watts riots, it was a flashpoint. It showed America a level of violence that could come from a riot, but it also showed America the reason why the riots were actually happening. Because see, back then journalism was a little bit different. See, you couldn't just spin things as easily because overall, people weren't connected to the media, whereas were to their freaking cell phones or their freaking laptops or their tablets, where they could be lied to as easily. A lot of things were word of mouth. And you had great historians, you had older people in families who would tell the stories, who would carry the stories down. And so as a result of the Watts riots and a result of a lot of the violence that was happening across the country, you had people like Ronald Reagan in California, and you had people like Don Mulford in California, public assemblyman, who passed the Mulford Act that banned open carry to stop the Black Panthers from open carrying to protect black people from the police. The same black people who were only, protesting and rioting because they were poor. You've given them no choice. If you're poor and you have nothing, right? If you're poor and you have nothing, what's stopping you from revolting? There's no reason for you to not revolt. So with that being said, the Black Panther Party saw needs. So they filled those needs. And just like with reparations, just like with any other issue in the black community, so often the people in a part of the dominant society will attack the people who are trying to bring change. Volume going in and out. My bad. Let me just turn this off real quick and just go strictly with my. Let me know if you guys can hear me fine. Let me know if you guys can hear me fine. It'd be great if you guys can tell me. My thing is that again, can you guys hear me a little bit better? It'd be great if you guys can let me know in the chat. And but the thing is that overall, when it comes to reparations and when it comes to overall dealing with these issues, what you're going to find is that oftentimes these people who push these narratives about what about this and what about these people and what about those what about those people? Those people are not saying this stuff for the sake of the argument of people getting reparations. People want so badly, and it comes down to two things. First thing is people either don't want us to get it, or two, people want to glom onto our struggle. What happens so often in civil rights movements is that the black community, especially foundational black Americans, carry the weight. Black Panther Party, you look at the early feminist movement, it would be dead in the water if it wasn't for black people. You look at a lot of civil rights movements into the modern day. People use the black struggle as a linchpin and as a launching point to boost their movements. And this is where you get the grifters who pretend like they're on our side but not really on our side. And what happens with those folks oftentimes, right? And this is kind of a funny dynamic. Those people are not only fake, but they are provably fake. And even when you demonstrate it, right, people will argue on their behalf. It's very fascinating, a dynamic what happens there. But reparations in particular, people want to add communities to reparations that were never a part of it in the first place. Stop using the Black community as your launching pin for your struggle. I feel empathy for Haitians. I feel empathy for Jamaicans. I feel empathy for people in Honduras. But 40 Acres and a Mule did not mention any of you. Foundational Black Americans. That's who it mentioned. The same thing with affirmative action. Affirmative action. That was intended for Black Americans. Who benefits from it mostly? Not us. Many of the things the civil rights movement was intended to benefit us. Who does it benefit now? The first time that that a person from a different community is attacked, you get white kids who feel attacked by someone teaching CRT, so they ban it. You get an Asian person who's attacked, they get anti-Asian hate crime bills. Native attacked, you get those bills. Middle Eastern, you get those bills. Jewish person, you definitely get those bills. Women, you get those bills. But if it's anything with Black on it, I want you to notice how it falls under the umbrella of, well, it's got to be full equality for everybody. It can't be a bill just for you. The only thing that we get that are bills just for us are goddamn statues. Statues. That's what we get. Statues. We get statues, and we get Black Lives Matter Boulevard and MLK Boulevard. We get a hood, the worst part of a city named after us. Worst part of a city named MLK Boulevard or MLK Street. That's what Black Americans can expect in return for our labor. A street name. And the worst part about that is that the government is not known to maintain roads, so typically those streets have potholes. So it's just like, again, it's a big insult. It's a big insult. It's an insult because the damage has been done. The damage is continuously being done, and people refuse to acknowledge it. And the part about that makes it so, I should say, insidious, so disgusting, is that those people argue those points as if they're right. And that will rule the day. Because in any discussion, right, I want you to know is whenever they bring up one of these little side points, like, well, what about this population, right? The discussion ends. And the reason why these people hate me, they can't stand me. They can't stand me is because I don't let it go that route. Notice how whenever they bring up a point, right, they'll say, well, what about this community? I'll say, well, based on the historical precedent, that community shouldn't get it. Or suppose for a second they'll say something like, well, why should I have to pay for it? And I'll say, because damage was done. And then once they ask me a question, I'll ask them a question. Why should I pay for Ukraine? And then I watch them argue their way into a trap, because logically speaking, you can't argue your way out of that. Because what they're going to say then is like, well, I don't agree with that either. It doesn't matter if you don't agree with it or not. I don't agree that I should pay money for every time a cop, when they do something bad, right? I shouldn't have to pay for the civil freaking proceeding. I shouldn't pay for the settlement either, but I do. That's called life. You don't want to pay for it? That's tough. If you don't want to pay for it, then don't benefit off of anything that I or my family has built. And yes, our people built a lot. A lot. This country in particular. And that's not coming from me. That came from Mitch McConnell. That came from Donald Trump. That came from so many other people who are on the right who have said Black Americans, they were pivotal to the creation of this country. right? They were pivotal. Pivotal. So if we were pivotal and we were thrown in change and you were still seeing evidence of racial discrimination, if you're still seeing evidence of this, or if you in or we have people who are still alive who experienced the civil rights era, there's no counter argument. There's no counter argument. There's no counter argument to be made to reparations. And these people realize that. So that's why they come up with these silly points. They'll make it personal. Oh, you just want a handout. Are you going to tell the Japanese that? No. Don't you say that on a live stream. I want to see you go on your TikTok channel and do that. Are you going to say that to a Native American? I want to see you do that on a TikTok channel. I don't want to see you do it in a comment section because that's not brave. I want to see you do it in an actual video. I bet you won't. I bet you won't. So my thing is that when it comes to reparations, a lot of the damage that's being done, a lot of the things that we discuss can be fixed almost overnight. You look at the lack of healthcare in the Black community. Overall, if you get someone, if you get someone who cannot afford healthcare, that's a problem. But in the Black community, it is particularly bad. Particularly bad. So there's certain things that money would solve immediately. And if you don't think so, that's fine. Skip your next paycheck then. Right? So when it comes to reparations, the specific timelines in which I think that people should be paid for. First should be for what happened to the Moors, because they fought in the Revolutionary War and they were thrown into chains. Second is what happened before slavery, the actual gathering of the slaves. Third is for the actual slavery. Fourth is for denying all the rights during slavery. Fifth, right, is what happened is 40 acres and a mule being promised after slavery. Actually, the fifth point shouldn't be that. That should be point number 6. The fifth point should be for the Black Americans who fought in the Revolutionary War to end slavery that they were forced into. They should be paid for that, compensated. Not just field rations, not just field pay, but fully compensated in their descendants. 6 reasons, the one I just listed. What happened to Black Americans during slavery, the denial of rights. 7th reason, right, is the breeding programs, where you selectively bred Black folks like we were damn dogs. 8th reason, the castrations, the removal of certain things. That should be a definite concern. Reason number 9. And reason number 9 is going to be a pretty personal one for me. After you freed the slaves, you promised them 40 acres and a mule. Not only did you not give them that, reason number 9 is for the Night Riders or the Klan. For all the police officers who were Klans. Okay? For all the police officers who ignored the Klan, for all the police officers who assisted the Klan, who gave them safe harbor, all across the country. Reason number 10, Civil Rights era, the entirety of it. Reason number 11, the aftermath. Reason number 12, the 80s and 90s. Reason number 13, what happened in the early 2000s. Reason number 14 is what's happening right now. Right now. We need to be compensated for what happened to us. Excuse me. Hey, hush up now. That's my dogs. But we should be compensated for the things that happen to us, for not just what happened to us, but what is continuously happening to us. I gave you 14 reasons why, and they can all be verified. I didn't even include everything, but those are the 14 things that I would focus on. Granted, I could add reason number 15, the Tuskegee experiments. Reason number 16, drafting black men in the Vietnam War and having them come back to be treated like second-class citizens. You don't think that those men should be compensated for that? Those veterans? Right now, Misty Martin 74 says, what I mean by right now, there are several reports that have been confirmed and been acknowledged by the federal government that there's been racial discrimination in several police departments across the country. Some of them have been placed under federal consent decrees, like, for example, the LA Sheriff's Department, NYPD, Philly PD, Portland PD, Seattle PD, Chicago PD. There's been several reports where systemic racism and also racist practices have been listed in the actual federal government documents and also in court cases. That's been confirmed. So there's it's not a question of if it's happening. The question of is how much of it, because it's definitely happened. The federal government investigated. A federal judge has ruled in every one of those cases. If you'd like to see the actual consent decrees, I can show you on screen. But yeah, that's what I mean by continuing. That's just one example. That's just one example. I have many. But one example that I bring up that's in black and white that we have case law and court documents for that is still ongoing to this very day. So you can't just get around that one. It's still ongoing. You can't get around that. And that list right now of federal consent decrees is ongoing. So you can't talk around it. You can't deflect. You can't say, well, what about? No. That's the point that I made on this stream, and it's my stream. So we're going to focus on that point. Yep. So when you have more than 10 departments in major cities covering LA, Chicago, New York, Philly, you name some of the largest cities in the whole country. Arizona, there's a lot of there's quite a few in Ohio and Arizona. But when you have that many, and it's an ongoing systemic problem that's been going on for generations. Not only has it been going on, but for example, with Seattle, as actual court documents, the ACLU published the ACLU timeline of accountability. If you Google it, for the Seattle PD, they have shown proof in court, and the federal judge heard it and accepted that, and even commented on it, that Seattle, their police have been known to go after black people in particular, or people in color, just in general. And the targeting has been systemic. So there's no question about it. There's no debate about it. It's already been debated in court. And the judge has already ruled on it. So when it comes to systemic racism that we're still facing as Black Americans to this very day, I will cite the federal consent decrees that have been long documented in the pantheon of American history, and that they are still valid to this very, very day. If you have a bunch of departments that can't listen to what a federal judge tells them, and a good bit of that is involving racism towards black folks, well, and that's current. You've had some of the court cases that I'm talking about have been going on since this year. Some of them were decided last year. Some of them have been ongoing for the past for more than a decade, like Seattle PD. More than a decade. They first replaced. They were first being investigated because there was a bunch of community members and a bunch of mayors and the governor sent a letter to the federal government back in 2010. So they were placed under a federal consent decree back in 2012. It's over 10 years, and they have not been in compliance once. And that's not according to me. It's according to the actual court documents. So that's not debatable. Not debatable. Nowhere around that one, right? So when I say current racism that black folks are facing, that is the federal government saying we're facing it. Now, if you have an argument or debate with that, that's fine, but take it up with the Department of Justice, not me. They're the ones that said it. I'm just repeating it. Now, A lot of those, now many of those investigations did not happen under the Obama administration or Joe Biden. In fact, 2010, that was a while ago, and even before then, there were departments that were being placed under consent decrees that were under Bush and also Trump. Now, with that being said, under the Trump administration, there wasn't as many, but there were some that were placed under consent decrees. Yes, even under Trump, because there were departments that were so racist, that were so bad to the point where even someone like Trump had to do something. It was that bad. Mr. Martin says, "Is Biden make a difference to help?" No, he's not. No, he's not. Not at all. And by the way, I'm not a Biden supporter whatsoever. Foundation of Black Americans, I'm going to tell you right now, do not support Joe Biden whatsoever. You vote third party. You vote third party because Joe Biden does not care about black people. Period. Joe Biden, we asked for an end to qualified immunity, and what does he do? He says, well, the answer is not to defund the police, but fund the police. That's not what we asked for, Joe Biden. We asked for decent living spaces and for health care. You give us pipes, Joe Biden. And I'm not going to say what kind of pipes that I'm talking about, but I think we all know what I'm talking about. Some people say, "Oh, that's freaking exaggerated." Stop it. Stop it. It's true. I've met people that have actually received it. It's true. It is. Because it's Joe Biden. Joe Biden does not care about black people. Neither do freaking Democrats. Democrats had the majority in the House and Senate and the White House. They're in the White House too. Is anything legalized yet? Is any of the green stuff like legalized yet? Is qualified immunity still here? Obama was president for 8 years. So was Bill Clinton. Did we get qualified immunity going on then? How about health care? Did anyone get health care during that period? We got Obamacare. But for some people, Obamacare was too expensive. And for some people, you don't have any kind of money. So how can you pay for health care? That was inadequate, and everyone knows it. It was a Band-Aid. It didn't fix the problem. It didn't fix any problem. So I want you to understand something, right? I don't like Democrats either, but I'm not going to vote for a freaking Republican. You want to know why? Because I want your whole system to crash. I don't trust either of you. Republicans are racist. Yes, you are. You can bring up, well, Republicans freed slaves. Stop it. Right now, you're racist. That doesn't mean that you have to remain that way. You could be better. But right now, you're racist. Democrats, right now, you're ineffective. You're ineffective. People ask you for something and you give us peanuts. Peanuts. The black community carried you in Georgia. And where'd you give us? Peanuts. You constantly give us peanuts. We are sick of giving you our votes with nothing in return. That is the staple of the black community. We give you our support, our voices, and our bodies for these civil rights movements. Everybody uses us. Communists use us, socialists use us, capitalists use us, Republicans use us, Democrats use us, Libertarians use us, Black Lives Matter, freaking Proud Boys, you name it. They always got a black shield in front of them, right? But then when we ask for anything from these movements, what do we get in return? We get peanuts. Foundational Black American families, stand up. Aren't you tired of getting goddamn on peanuts? Don't tell me about how great Republicans are. Screw Republicans. They're racist. I will never vote for a freaking Republican, but I will not vote for a goddamn Democrat either. Because neither party is working for us. Neither party gives a crap about us, the American people. I'm so sick of black folks being screwed over by Republicans and Democrats. Both of you. The both of us. We give you our tax dollars. We give you our bodies. We give you our voices. We even march for your causes. When you see, right, when you see a white person who is shot down by a cop, right, you see black folks in the streets, even more so than white folks. You see black folks in the freaking streets. Because we are the one community that will care. Because we are the one community that can understand that police hurt citizens. We understand that. We get that as a black community. So as a result of that, whenever you have somebody who is Hispanic, anybody who is white, you have black folks in the streets in Arizona protesting the police shooting of Richie Lee Richards, a white man, an old white man. You had black folks protesting after police shot down Hunter Britton, a white boy. A white boy. You got black folks who don't even agree with what happened with Ashley Babbitt. And to be honest with you, I don't agree with the reason why Ashley Babbitt was at the Capitol on that day, but I don't agree with her being shot. Because guess what? At the end of the day, even if I don't agree with you, you are still a citizen. And that bullet that was fired from that gun still hit you as a citizen, and I paid for that bullet. Do I think someone should be shot down for what she did? No. No. But see, I'm consistent when it comes to my criticism of police officers. But the people to her left and to her right were carrying Blue Lives Matter flags. So that's why I don't want to hear anyone who supported what she did that day speak on her death. Right? So if you're going to support police, don't cry about Ashley Babbitt. Support police. Pick one. Because I picked one. And my position is clear. That's how I can say I ideologically disagree with Ashley Babbitt, but I do not support her being shot by cops. No, I don't. I don't. Because I don't care what the reason is. I don't like cops shooting people. Because my tax dollars pay for that bullet. And if my tax dollars pay for that bullet, then I should have a choice into how that bullet is being used. Misty Martin 74 says, I feel Antifa sabotaged the BLM protesting in January 6th to keep Americans from uniting and protesting now. Maybe. But my thing is, it's just, I dislike it when people are inconsistent. If you say you don't like what happened to Ashley Babbitt, do not have no Blue Lives Matter flag. If you say you don't like what happened to Daniel Shaver, right, and you bring it up with, what about Daniel Shaver, right? What about Daniel Shaver? What about Daniel Shaver, guys? He was a white man. He was shot down. What about Daniel Shaver? What about Daniel Shaver? What about him? What about him? If you're gonna mention Daniel Shaver, right? Then I want you to mention who shot Daniel Shaver. Was it Black Lives Matter? Was it Antifa? No, it was the very same police that you support if you're Blue Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter march for Daniel Shaver. Absolutely. Right? Black Lives Matter march for Daniel Shaver. Because I'm going to tell you, his life mattered too. There's people out there that loved him, that cared for him. I may not be white like him, but I understand someone missing somebody. I understand that when holidays come and you look at that chair is empty, the plate's empty, the glass is empty, someone out there misses him. Daniel Shaver might have been a white man, but I feel for his family. Because when you go through the holidays and you go through birthdays, you go through Christmas, you go through Thanksgiving, you go through, even Resurrection Sunday if you celebrate that, or even Easter, whatever you want to call it, or even Halloween. Could you imagine looking at that empty chair and knowing what happened and knowing the person who took your loved one away walks free? You're not going to care about what's justified and what's not justified in that case. You're going to care that your loved one's gone. And this is why Black Lives Matter. This is why the Black Panther Party and so many others protested. This is why we did what we did. Because there's people out there who are suffering. And it's unfortunate that there's people in the white community who did not stand with Daniel Shaver. They just said he should have did this and did that, and the officer made a mistake. That wasn't good enough for the black community, so that's why we protested. That wasn't good enough for us. We didn't accept that. We think that you can be better with our tax dollars. You can be better. You could be so much better. Hunter Britton didn't deserve to be gunned down. Hunter Britton was a good kid. He's a good kid. I watched the press conference and the news interview with his family, and his father was wearing some black shades, and I guess he was wearing those shades because he didn't want people to see his eyes. I felt for that man. I can see the pain, man. Like, I don't know what it's like to have a police officer shoot and kill my son, but that doesn't mean I can't see the pain in that man's eyes. He raised that boy. That's hurtful, man. That's hurtful. Jamal for Jesus. Jamal, how you doing, sir? Thank you. There is no hope with the cost situation. Both Republicans and Democrats support the police state. Absolutely. Yeah. Aiden says Blue Lives Matter sticks up for when police abuse and do terrible things to people. Yeah, that they do. They do. How's it going, ACAB? Rick here. How you doing? Yes, it's going. It's going, man. It's going. John BLM says he did everything they asked him to do. Yeah, he did. They executed him. Yeah. We need to stop making excuses for the state. Yes, you're right, Saint Stereo. His son, yeah. Oh man, that was rough. That was rough. I have friends also. I have Tina, who follows me. She's her son Caleb Slay. Another young white man gunned down by a DEA agent, and the young man lost his life. And I became friends with her because I heard her story, and there was a lot of people who just brush her off because, again, when people are going through something that's traumatic, unfortunately, sometimes they tend to want to shout it to anybody that will listen. And so she was doing that a lot. And so some people were not listening. And so I decided to just sit down and just listen. And I heard her story. She's on TikTok. She makes content about what happened and holding cops accountable. But I listened to what she said. And she said something to me that stuck with me. She said the people will back the blue until it happens to you, because she's actually still to this very day a Trump supporter. To this very day, she's a Republican, but she doesn't like cops. And I'm trying to talk to her and say, hey, Republican Party is very pro cop, and so is Trump. And I'm trying to talk to her about that, but I don't want to do that, so soon, because she's still going through grieving. And when someone's grieving, you don't want to throw that on them. You just want to be as supportive as possible, because the woman did lose her son. Someone out there killed her son. Joe Bayardi, I want to say, who cares about criminals who commit crimes and don't make it? One less low life support. Wow, is that how you feel, man? That's that's sad, man. Like you gotta do better than that, man. Like you gotta. I would suggest you go and talk to somebody, man. That's really unfortunate that you feel that way about your fellow human beings. But I for one, don't believe that anyone should lose their life. But the fact that you feel that way, I can't even be mad at you at this point. I just feel sorry for you, right? Um, Johnny, oh, you can say what you want, brother. You can say what you want, brother. I feel that, but I'm just sad for this person. I'm sad for this person because I want you to think to yourself, what kind of a life are they leading? Whereas they go on TikTok and say stuff like this. What kind of a life are you leading, man? What kind of a life are you leading? Whereas you think that saying stuff like this is what's going to earn you friends or earn you respect. But add you as a moderator. Don't a great life. No, you don't lead a great life, man. I don't think so. Uh, John says, like you said this morning, people don't care about why people commit crimes. Yeah, um, that's that's the other part. People say this person is a criminal, and you ask the question, well, what crimes did they commit? Because most crimes are not violent in nature. Because the problem with that is, right, and this is how I trap people. I'm gonna give you a nice little tool, right? A nice little trick. So typically, people who are like Mr. Joe here, they will also be gamers, right? And those same gamers, if you say, well, video games don't cause violence, well, they'll respond with, well, I know this. And then you'll say, well, they can't be that many criminals then, because the FBI report that you are using to defend video games is the exact same report that I'm pulling from to say that violent crime has been down. So the so-called criminals aren't committing violent crimes. The vast majority of arrests aren't done for violent crimes. So what are you calling a criminal? And are you a libertarian? I hope you aren't, because if you are a libertarian, I'm not going to respect your brand of libertarianism. Um, and in particular, I don't think if there's no victim, there's no crime. So look up the actual crime data and tell me if the vast majority of crimes are actually violent and or actually have like an actual victim. And I'm not going to do that for you. I want you to do that I want you to do that, Joe. And if you don't do that, well, that's unfortunate. And then I'm going to remove you from the actual chat, because when you make claims, I'm going to present the counter evidence, right? And if you don't look into the counter evidence, you just keep talking, well, then that lets me know that you're just trolling and you serve no purpose here. So with that being said, once again, when people do this kind of stuff, right, that's how you trap them. You trap them by bringing up other points that you know that if they publicly attack, they're gonna look they're gonna look silly. The reason why people do stuff like this is because what they're hoping is they can try to rile up other people who have socks, right, and basically to gaslight you in your own chat. And when you hit them with stuff like that, it makes it so that they can't recover. This is why Joe hasn't said anything in like a long, long time. Notice how what he did, right? So he says 97% of African American murders are on African American. So notice how he skipped past everything that I just said, right? So Joe, I'm gonna give you one more chance. Look up crimes, right? And look up how many crimes for look up the actual arrests, right, for 2020 or 2021. And I want you to look up for either year or both years. And I want you to come back to me and I want you to tell me how many of those crimes actually had an actual victim. I want you to give me a breakdown of the actual arrest data. Because if you're talking about criminals, right, you should actually be able to cite the data. And you cited something real quick. I want you to cite that 97% of all the murders are happening with black people. I want you to demonstrate that. Present that data. Don't just say, well, no. Present an actual link. I'd like to see that. Because what I'm going to do for you, Joe, I'm going to help you out, man. I don't want you to walk throughout your entire life, not being informed. Okay. So I'm gonna show you what I can do for you, right? What I can do for you is when you make claims, I can go to my desktop here and I can actually search those claims, Joe. So once again, you make claims again, I'm gonna look it up. And if it doesn't check out, I'm gonna bang you from the chat. Okay, Joe? That goes for everybody. Because the way I see it is that one thing we gotta do on TikTok, we gotta end this cowardly stuff where people just hide in the comment section, right? Right? They just hide in the comment section, leave silly comments, hide on the stock accounts, and they okay, Joe, one last chance, Joe. Go look up the data and then post in the chat specifically for 2021 or 2020, your choice. No, give me numbers, Joe. Give me numbers. I don't care about violent crimes being up. Give me the actual numbers of overall crime, Joe. You say anything else other than that, I'm going to ban you from the chat. I give you my word. Look it up, Joe. Right? Now, I gave you a clear directive, Joe. It's my stream. I can choose to do whatever I like. Clear directive. Look it up and present the numbers. Numbers and a link to where you found those numbers. I do not want to hear, right? I do not want to hear excuses, Joe. Don't say anything else in the chat other than what I requested, Joe. Thank you. I felt like I was very, very kind when I said that. I feel like I was very, very nice when I said that. But my thing is that I have a very strong dislikeness for people who hide in comment sections and say racist or silly stuff and yet don't want to back it up. Right? So overall, when it comes to, all right, Joe, well, you have a good day, sir. I tried. I told you don't say anything else other than what I asked for. Because when you make claims in chat, I want you to present evidence. You can post links in the chat. Okay? Sorry, Joe. You got to go. Joe's got to go. Now, with that being said, guys, don't depend the majority in the race in the community. It usually does depend him saying things like, well, most black people are killed by black people. Well, that's also true about white people and Hispanics and Asians. That's typically how that happens. That does not address my point. My point was that most arrests and most so-called crimes don't actually have an actual victim. That was my point, and he never addressed that. He just kept saying, well, violent crimes are up. That doesn't inherently demonstrate that most crimes are violent or actually has a victim. Right? Like, for example, I could say that the temperature is rising, right? That doesn't make it possible for me to say that it is also too hot outside. That's not the same statement. Saying that the temperature is rising, well, the temperature could rise from 35 degrees to 40 degrees. The temperature rise, that doesn't make it hot outside. So I use that analogy to demonstrate how you saying that, well, violent crime is up or you deflecting on black crime, that doesn't negate the overall point. So I gave you yet another tool to use that analogy to do a comparative analysis on someone's point. See, when you break down someone's point logically, they don't have a point to even stand on, right? So I'll give you another example of a common tactic that people will say on TikTok when you bring up the police in terms of black people. So one thing that they will say all the time is, well, black on black crime is a problem, therefore we cannot address the police. So that point is not only a poor point, it doesn't really make any sense, right? That is not only a bad point, it doesn't even logically follow. Let's say, for example, the government right now is drone striking a bunch of people who are white, right? It would be unreasonable for me to bring up the point. Well, the government is, in freaking West Virginia and in the Great Lakes and in the freaking Rust Belt, they're arresting a bunch of white people for opioid stuff. It wouldn't make any sense. So bringing up crime in another instance doesn't negate a point that is made about the police. So the whataboutism, right? It is so poor that lately you've been noticing that at one point it was working, but now it's not working. People are rejecting it. Even people who support cops, right? They're calling out these people and said that's bad argumentation, because those people realize that when the general American public hears that and they break it down, they're like, that doesn't make any damn sense. That sounds silly. That sounds real silly. Do you support queer people? Do you agree that all black trans lives matter? Yeah, absolutely. Especially my queer FBA people. Especially my queer Foundation of Black Americans. Oh, you got all my love. Absolutely. But all people who are LGBT, period. I have no issue with you. The black community does not care. A lot of the bigotry that you see, it's not really coming from foundational black Americans. My thing is, it's just much of it. Barry, don't spam, Barry. Come on, Barry. Don't spam. Don't spam. Don't spam. Don't spam. Don't spam, Barry. Please don't spam, Barry. It's not nice. John says, see, the thing is, when black people said Black Lives Matter, we included all lives. Yeah, we did. We did. We did. Now, with that being said, one of the other tactics that many of these people will definitely use, something that you're going to notice very, very quickly, how they attack arguments. They circumvent arguments by doing this. If I say, I'll give you a prime example, right? I'll give you a prime example. If I say there are Republicans who believe that they are more intelligent than black people because they're white, that's called race realism, right? And that's actually a thing. But if I say that, right, if I ask a Republican, do you believe in that? They'll say, well, I believe that Jewish people and Asian people are smarter than white people. They're not directly answering the question. You see what I mean? So that's a way of answering the question while also making an insult. So what you got to do is you can't allow these people to use weasel language. See, that's weasel language. See, that's what I see so often in these conversations, and a lot of people don't know how to even respond to that because they use weasel language themselves, right? So one of the prime examples that I use in these kinds of discussions when it comes to black people and the police and civil rights, so when it comes to black people's civil rights, one of the more common arguments that I will hear is that police are not bad because they help some black people and that they don't kill all black people. Now, I've heard this argumentation, and the logic follows, the supposed logic follows that if police were so dangerous to black people, that all black people would be either killed off or locked up. I don't think people truly understand what subjugation is, right? Because even during slavery, they kept most of us alive. So that's a pretty bad point. That's a pretty bad point. Do you support defunding the police? Yes, and reallocating funds. Defund the police is not what people have defined it as. Defund the police is not just it's not just getting rid of all police. It is a reimagining of police, or taking some resources away and giving it to mental health services and also first responders services like the EMS and firemen, and also working with counselors to deal with some of the issues. Some of the issues that police are dealing with, they shouldn't be dealing with. Period. They're not trained for that. Smirk generally says exactly because the fear they inflict is also a tool of subjugation. Yes, it is. There are some black people who will literally have a panic attack around the police. Refund the police. That's a better term. Nah. I rather say ACAB personally. We can do whatever we want with police. Personally, I would like to get rid of them. I would like to reimagine policing in general. I would like for it to be whereas every neighborhood, every neighborhood individually gets to vote, or whether or not we keep the current system or we move to a new system. That's how I would want it. I would want it whereas you would get the right to vote on if you're going to pay for these police, or if you want to go to maybe a private security firm, or if you want to go to a local militia. There's some communities who have done that, and it's been very successful. Now, if you want to see it, I can go to my desktop and I can show you. I can show you quite a few actually. I think that individual communities, if you're going to pay your money, right? Say you run a business, right? Shouldn't you get a right to choose who polices your communities? I'm not talking about, getting rid of your policing. I'm saying I want you to choose how your policing goes. If you say I don't want cops enforcing drug laws, you should have that right. If you say I don't want cops enforcing, urban camping where you can lock up a homeless guy for sitting on a freaking park bench for way too long, you should get that choice. I want you to get what you paid for. If you pay for this stuff, I want you to be able to choose how this stuff goes. And I want you to be able to reimagine how policing goes in your neighborhood. And do you want to know why I say this? The main reason why I say this is because I think the American citizen and people in general have been abused in a way that governments have presented a duopoly, or even sometimes a triopoly, where it's like it's freaking Democrat or freaking Republican. It's half police or anarchy. You present false narratives and false dichotomies, whereas you try to present this case where we have no choice. And the unfortunate part about that is that you have people who are brought into this while simultaneously calling themselves libertarians. And that is the most ridiculous, pathetic thing that I've ever heard in my life. How are you a libertarian arguing against choice? I'm talking about giving people the choice and the autonomy, right? The choice and the autonomy to decide if the government is going to take your tax dollars, whether you agree with it or fucking not, then at least you should get to decide where it goes. I don't want you to be abused by a government who takes your money and spends it where you don't want it spent. See, it's not just the fact that police officers are abusing black folks. You ask us to pay for that too. That's crazy. Every time a cop messes up or hurts someone or takes someone's life, right? Who pays for the freaking settlement? You pay for that. I don't think that's right. I think that when you mess up on your job, no one else pays for that. So why should you pay for when someone else messes up on their job? Make that make sense. You take accountability for your actions. They should too. When they mess up, you pay 100%, right, of the cost. Barry Geyer says, how about all black police officers? I don't know. I don't know about that. All black police officers. I don't want all black police officers. I want police officers in your neighborhood that you choose. I want you, the people, to choose that. Be they black, be they white, be they Asian, be they purple. I want you to choose that. Because the reason why I want you to choose that, because only you know what is best for your community. I don't live there, right? I don't live in your community, so I don't know what you need. However, you do. You do. And so therefore, if you do, it is you who should be able to decide, right, where your money goes. Where your money goes. I don't think it should be all black police officers, because I want people to to actually have an opportunity to be police officers, to be the version of policing that I envision. I envision a version of policing whereas there's a lot more training and there's a lot more choice. I envision a version of policing where it can be fulfilled by militias. I envision a version of policing where it can be whereas it can be fulfilled by common citizens if you so choose. If you want to do a citizen patrol, you should have that right. You want to know why? The main reason why is because that prevents the Epsteins. That prevents the Catholic Church, the Catholic priests. That prevents the Boy Scout troops from abusing boys. If you had the right to walk down to that Boy Scout troop right now, right? And if you heard that your son was being touched, what you gonna do? You're gonna assemble a posse. You're gonna find the scout leader who did it. You're gonna drag him down to the courthouse. And you're going to get the job done yourself. You're going to have a trial right there. You're going to present all the evidence. And you're going to get that set in stone right now. Black cops are just as bad as white. Yeah, I agree. Right now, they are. They are. There is no monopoly on bad cops. No monopoly on bad cops when it comes to racial identity. I do stories on Hispanic cops, on Asian cops, on black, white cops. I